Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John. This report is for the 1st of October. Well, the excitement has already begun. As we move back above the ES here on the ABM level, it's an indication that clearly the market is not expressing a lot of concern about the political uproars. We've seen this continuation here from the rising gold. We'd had the Azure starting to climb, but then it leveled off before meeting, so it hasn't really made that meeting point that we look for where we're expecting some type of change. We've also got a complete reset now of DOC, and with green popping above, steel above cyan, and the orange falling, you could be in store for new highs. Imagine that. We're at the right time of the month because inflow is going to be coming in the next days, maybe more days, so that build up, but sometimes it built it up right before they push down into that new money. So we'll keep an eye out for that one going forward. From a NASDAQ standpoint, looking almost identical. It's a little bit softer than the ES has been, but clean. Nothing to complain about from there. And this is going to be start to grow as a problem for the S&P because clearly Euro having some significant trouble because of the continued turmoil, the uncertainty with Brexit. It's just a general nightmare. They kind of solved the Italy question by moving Salvini out, but clearly there are headwinds in the European area as far as whether or not the euro can maintain itself. But it's going to be problematic now because as we get close to that 105, it becomes a significant break point, and then who knows what's available. So the Saudis say they're back to regular production before the strike already, probably by just increasing output elsewhere, and that has put us back down towards the bottom range of the oil. This is also now becoming a growing question as to whether or not there's been more significant drag in economic growth, and if this starts to move down towards this bottom range, then I think you can start to talk seriously about the potentials for global slowdown of some kind. We've already seen some pretty weak prints from the US overall, so we'll see if it starts to gain steam. And this isn't that unusual because whenever there's major political uncertainty, that people tend to freeze their behaviors, meaning they like to hoard just to prepare, just in case, and just in case. And that usually causes a contraction. Not to mention you have all the end-of-year government spending that is pretty much expired because all those government agencies that have been awarded way more money than they needed figure they got to spend it, otherwise they won't get it for the next year, so they just kind of like spend like mad, crazy, drunken people, and that's pretty much ended. So back to normal, or they could have just not spent the money. Yeah, it doesn't really work that way, does it? Gold breaking below the 50% line. We did that turnaround here. We've been in this soft short kind of position for a while. I call it the broad short here. We had the steel. Had kind of attempted to poke above to give it a nice run. It stayed slightly above over here. That gave enough for this X2 push. But then once it dipped back down right over here, that began a new wave, particularly with the green under red, and it's just exacerbated itself and taken out the previous dip below the red lines that happened over here. So that's been cleared out, and just indication that inflation is not a factor. So we started the day, and we'll go back to it. We had this brief little dip right here. We came underneath, and we ended up with the dip below the red line, started to move, and then we got the buy signal, and it was like, okay, well, we started to make a little bit lower shakeout as we were getting closer to the highs, but then it just never really caved at all, and then we ended up with cyan under red and just a bunch of these little back and forth cross moves. We had this one little break signal that came right through there, but it was on a complete steel reset, and then it just turned around right back up to the peaks. We had a decent one that developed right over here. We were still pretty high with magenta and that on the shakeout, but we were already breaking below zero at that point from a DOC standpoint, and that gave a nice little retrace. Wasn't a whole lot, not a whole lot of points, but it just came right back to the algo. And then again, you can see the lines. We've supported right off of the 71 algo. Then once we broke back above the 77, that became the floor for the latest buildup and breakout there. And now we're hitting the 94 resistance, so that could be potentially a tough spot that may cause us to come back to the 97. We have a couple of positive extremes. Let's put them on there. Let's make sure we've got them marked. So that would put us right around the 83 range. We kind of filled it back in, but then we ended up with a couple of more that developed right on this initial breakout, which again right around the 84.50 range. So that's not bad. Anyway, it's a good start to things. Working pretty good with the criteria for establishing what this broader weakness pattern is before it dips back, and I'm talking about the steel in this case, when it goes and stays above. It's just like when it stays below, it's super bullish in general here, unless you get a move above cyan and then right back below at the same time with your DOC red, and that's what you can kind of follow that one all the way through, coming back here, because the steel was below throughout, well, almost the entire run of that up move, and when it wasn't, you can see we were kind of flat. So worthwhile stuff. It's just not so easy putting in exact terminology, but we're getting closer. It's all good. As always, though, I will put up any of the relevant charts and any unique things that develop along the day on the Skype chat. And if you have any questions, you can always ask them there as well. As always, though, trade well. We'll talk to you later.